The 3rd Cavalry Regiment, a formerly 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment, is a regiment of the United States Army currently stationed at Fort Hood, TX. The regiment has a history in the United States Army that dates back to the 19th of May 1846, when it was constituted in the regular Army as the Regiment of Mounted Riflemen at Jefferson Barracks, Missouri. This unit was reorganized at the start of the American Civil War as the 3rd U.S. Cavalry Regiment on 3 August 1861. In January 1943, the regiment was redesignated as the 3rd Cavalry Group. Today they are equipped with Stryker vehicles. The 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment was the last heavy armored cavalry regiment in the U.S. Army until it officially became a Stryker regiment on 16 November 2011. It will retain its lineage as the 3rd Cavalry Regiment. Under various names, it has seen action during 11 major conflicts: the Indian Wars, the Mexican-American War, the American Civil War, the Spanish-American War, the Philippine-American War, World War I, World War II, the Persian Gulf War, SFOR in Bosnia, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and in Afghanistan for Operation Enduring Freedom. 23 of the regiment's troopers received the Medal of Honor, all awarded for gallantry in action between 1871 and 1898. The list includes William "Buffalo Bill" Cody, whose award was rescinded in 1916 for not being a member of the military. Cody's medal was reinstated in 1989. Structure. The 3rd Cavalry Regiment's structure consists of 7 cavalry squadrons. Each cavalry squadron is divided into 4 cavalry troops, batteries, companies. The regiment also controlled 4 independent companies, troops, regimental headquarters and headquarters troop, Remington. 1st Squadron, Tiger; 2nd Squadron, Sabre; 3rd Squadron, Thunder; 4th Squadron, Long Knife; Field Artillery Squadron, Steel; Engineer Squadron, Pioneer; Support Squadron, Moleskine; P Anti-Tank Company; 43rd Combat Engineer Company; O Signal Troop, 66th Military Intelligence Company; 293rd MP Company. Ada Battery, Predator. Origins. The Regiment of Mounted Riflemen was authorized by an act of Congress on 1 December 1845, and the President signed the bill in law 19 May 1846. Thus, came into existence a new organization in the United States Army, a regiment of riflemen, mounted to provide greater mobility than the infantry and equipped with percussion rifles to provide greater range and more accurate firepower than the infantry's muskets of the dragoons' carbines. 1st Squadron, Tiger Squadron, is currently organized as follows: Headquarters and Headquarters Troop, A Troop Infantry, B Troop Infantry, C Troop Infantry. Ada Battery Air Defense. When the Regiment of Mounted Riflemen was organized pursuant to the Act of Congress in 1846, the first companies filled A, B, C, and D. They would not be designated as troops until 1883 and would later make up the core of Tiger Squadron. 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment. Bandit Troop is the regiment's senior troop. It was organized 1 August 1846, and consisted of 1 captain, 1 to 1 stone lieutenant, 1 second lieutenant, 1 brevet, 2 LT, and 75 enlisted men. Crazy Horse Troop was organized next on 1 September 1846, with Captain Samuel H. Walker as its commander. He is listed as being on detached service at Washington, obtaining equipment and recruits for company, until 21 May 1847. No doubt the equipment he was obtaining was the shipment of 1,000 Colt Walker revolvers he had co-designed with Samuel Colt. Apache Troop completed its organization 1 October 1846. Captain William Wing Loring was the first commander of A Company, and would later become the regiment's second colonel, before resigning his commission to serve the Confederacy. Dragon Company was organized the 4th of October 1846 with 3 officers and 61 enlisted. Captain Henry Pope was the first commander of D Company. The regiment's first combat came in the United States' First International Expeditionary War, the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 1848. Crazy Horse, Troop Lead General Scott's investment of the city of Veracruz. In subduing the first victory, was the capture of a Mexican supply train of oxen laden with casks of wine. Cadet Dabney Maury of C Company. When our work for the day was done, we were very hungry and thirsty, so our Texas guide lassoed fat beef, a keg of sherry was broached, and we bivouacked upon the northern beach of Veracruz, just beyond the cannon range of the city, and remained there until, after 2 or 3 weeks' bombardment, Veracruz surrendered. Apache troops suffered the regiment's first enlisted and officer combat casualties. Private Timothy Cunningham was killed by a cannonball during the siege of Veracruz on the 11th of March 1847. 1 month later, on the 18th of April 1847, one Lt. Thomas Ewell was killed in action at Cerro Gordo. As he died, General Scott knelt by him and soothed his expiring moments, saying afterwards, "Ewell fell sword in hand within the works." On the 9th of June 1847, frontiersman Christopher Kit Carson was appointed as a lieutenant of rifles in Company C. However, Congress refused to confirm his appointment. 2nd Squadron Sabre Squadron is organized as follows: Headquarters and Headquarters Troop: D Troop Infantry, E Troop Infantry, F Troop Infantry. 43rd Combat Engineer Company. The 43rd CEC is organized as follows: Headquarters Platoon, 1st Platoon, 2nd Platoon, 3rd Platoon, Assault and Obstacle Platoon, Maintenance Platoon. During conventional combat operations, one sapper platoon plus a portion of the A and AMP-O platoon would be attached to each maneuver squadron. During Operation Iraqi Freedom, sapper has been placed under the operational control of all 3 maneuver squadrons, both at company and platoon levels. 3rd Squadron, Thunder Squadron, is organized as follows: Headquarters and Headquarters Troop: G Troop Infantry, H Troop Infantry, I Troop Infantry. 66th Military Intelligence Company. The 3rd Squadron was the command of future Gen. George S. Patton, Jr., who also served as the 28th Colonel of the regiment. 3rd Squadron also has 7 Medal of Honor recipients throughout its history. The 3rd Squadron deployed as Task Force Thunder and operated in southern Iraq as part of Operation New Dawn. The 3rd Squadron is currently deployed to Afghanistan. 4th Squadron Long Knife Squadron was organized as follows: Headquarters and Headquarters Troop: K Troop, Recon, L Troop, Recon, M Troop, Recon. P Anti-Tank Company, Infantry. The 4th Squadron, 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment, originated from the Aviation section assigned to the regiment while stationed in Germany in 1961. In July 1968, the 3rd ACR, with the Aviation section, redeployed to the United States and was stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington. The regiment, along with the Aviation section and a recently formed Air Cavalry Troop, relocated from Fort Lewis, Washington to Fort Bliss, Texas in 1972. In 1982, the Aviation section was consolidated and redesignated as the Regimental Support Aviation Troop, which, along with the Air Cavalry Troop, provided the regiment with airborne command and control, troop lift, aerial resupply, and medical evacuation capabilities. The ACT and RSAT were combined in December 1985 to form the 3rd Combat Aviation Squadron. This provisional squadron first demonstrated its contribution to the Regimental Combined Arms Team during a rotation to the National Training Center in 1987. The following year, the squadron deployed to REFORGER to participate in the last REFORGER exercise prior to the collapse of the Berlin Wall in 1989. The squadron was officially activated as the 4th Squadron, 3rd ACR in October 1988. It consisted of headquarters and headquarters troop, 3 air cavalry troops, 2 attack troops, an assault troop, and an aviation maintenance troop. Within these organizations, the squadron was equipped with the R-1 Cobra attack helicopter, the OH-58 CQR helicopter, and the UH-1 Iroquois Huey, followed in 1989 by the UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter. In September 1990, the squadron deployed to Saudi Arabia as part of Operation Desert Shield and established Long Knife Base Camp in north-central Saudi Arabia. On the morning of the 24th of February 1991, the squadron crossed the border into Iraq and commenced offensive operations in support of the regiment, attacking deep into Iraqi territory, moving more than 350 kilometers in less than 72 hours. Upon the coalition forces' victory, the squadron redeployed to Fort Bliss, Texas in March 1991. In late 1995, the squadron initiated its relocation from Fort Bliss to Fort Carson, Colorado. In December 1995, the 2 attack troops were activated and a OH-58 and R-1 aircraft were turned in. On the 15th of January 1996, the 2 attack troops were reactivated and equipped with R-64 Apache attack helicopters. The relocation to Fort Carson, Colorado was completed in March 1996. The 571st Medical Company was assigned to the squadron in August 1996 with 15 additional UH-60 Black Hawk aircraft. With the addition of the 571st, the squadron grew to a total of 83 combat aircraft and 700 troopers, the largest aviation squadron battalion in the United States Army. As of 2006, 571st Medical Company is no longer with Long Knife Squadron. The squadron continued its attack, air cavalry, assault, electronic warfare and medevac missions in support of the regiment and the post not only at home station, but also during recent deployments to the National Training Center, Pinon Canyon Maneuver Site, Operation Green Flag, Operation Northern Edge, Operation Intrinsic Action, medevac support to Joint Task Force SIC, Fort Bliss, Texas, and Fort Riley, Kansas, and to wildland firefighting contingencies throughout the western United States. In October 1998, the squadron transferred all remaining OH-58 and R-1 aircraft and was modernized with 24 OH-58 DQR Warrior helicopters. This reorganization under the Army Restructuring Initiative will again leave the squadron as the only squadron or battalion in the active force, equipped with R-64, UH-60AL, and OH-58D aircraft. In 2005, during OIF-3, Quicksilver Troop was redesignated Quick Strike and served as the regiment's light reconnaissance troop with air mobile capability. Additionally, Troop Q partnered with an Iraqi Army brigade and helped start the 3rd IA Division's Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance Company. In 2006, Long Knife Squadron was inactivated during the regiment's move to Fort Hood, Texas in the summer of 2006. leaving portions of Long Knife Squadron at Fort Carson, Colorado. The 30H-58D Air Cavalry Troops, Headquarters and Headquarters Troop, the FSD and portions of the AVIM and AVUM remained at Fort Carson and were reflagged as the 1st Squadron, 6th Cavalry. Upon the regiment's arrival at Fort Hood, the 1st Squadron, 1st Aviation Regiment was reflagged as 4th Squadron, 3rd ACR, changing the makeup and capabilities of 4th Squadron. Troops NO and P no longer possessed the O-58 Kiowa Warrior and are now outfitted with AH-64D Apache longbows. Troop R is no longer the attack troop and is now the forward support troop. Troop S remains the UH-60L Black Hawk troop. Troop T is still the aviation unit level maintenance troop. Upon the reflag, Long Knife gained an aviation intermediate maintenance troop which was previously organized under the Regimental Support Squadron. On the 16th of November 2011, Long Knife Squadron was reconstituted as the regiment's reconnaissance squadron. Under LTC David Foley, the squadron made the transition from a combination of tank companies to a striker-based reconnaissance squadron. Unlike other Stryker Brigade combat teams, Long Knife has the anti-tank company attached. Long Knife Squadron deployed to the Sinai Peninsula in support of the Multinational Forces and AMP Observers mission in May 2014–February 2015. Field Artillery Squadron Steel Squadron is organized as follows: Headquarters and Headquarters Battery Alpha Battery Bravo Battery Charlie Battery Field Artillery Squadron. 3rd Cavalry Regiment was formed on the 16th of November 2011 with the transition from an Armored Cavalry Regiment to the Striker Cavalry Regiment. The 3 firing batteries shoot the M777A2 medium-towed 155mm howitzer weapon system. These batteries also existed before the transition and were assigned to the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Squadrons, respectively. HHB was stood up on the 16th of November 2011. The first commander of the Field Artillery Squadron was LTC Lynn E. Downey and the first command sergeant major was CSM Kenneth Oliver. The second commander was LTC Alric Francis. The current command team is LTC Robert Jenkins and CSM Caddy. Engineer Squadron 3rd Cavalry Regiment was formed on the 16th of June 2015. Support Squadron Moleskine Squadron is organized as follows: Headquarters and Headquarters Troop Supply and Transportation Troop Maintenance Troop Medical Troop Signal Troop Support Squadron. 3rd Cavalry Regiment was formed on the 11th of November 1977 on the order of the 57th Colonel of the regiment, Colonel C. Lutz, and given the mission of executing logistical operations for the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment. Support Squadron promptly adopted the nickname Moleskine from the original Teamsters who conducted logistical operations by wagon trains for the Regiment of Mounted Riflemen during its early years. During Operation Iraqi Freedom 3, the 89th Chemical Company, led by Captain Fennell for the first 10 months of the deployment, and 1st Sergeant Michael Shirley, oversaw detention operations at the regimental internment facility, safeguarding and segregating over 2,000 detainees. Further, the unit's reconnaissance platoon traveled over 20,000 miles as they conducted escort operations for the Moleskine logistical convoys. The final 2 months of the deployment, Captain Brian Kaplan took command of 89th and redeployed the company back to the States after a successful OIF deployment. The 89th Chemical Company was officially reorganized into a troop on the 16th of November 2011. Outlaw Troop is the regiment's first signal troop. Medical Troop was commanded by Captain Dan Lytle. Missions encompass several mass casualty events and medical evacuations, along with medical coverage at the regiment's displaced civilian facility during Operation Restoring Rights and on-site medical coverage at the Regimental Internment Facility. Maintenance Troop, commanded by Captain John Reeves, conducted a multitude of tasks including forward operating base gate security, continued maintenance operations, enabling the success of the regiment during Operation Restoring Rights, and conducted Iraqi police training and partnership operations. Supply and Transportation Troop, led by James Outland, moved thousands of pounds of ammunition, fuel and food to the maneuver units, allowing sustained operations. Mexican-American War. The regiment served in 6 campaigns of the Mexican War. On the 20th of August 1847, General Winfield Scott, commander of American forces in Mexico, made a speech from which the first 16 words have become important to the regiment. The regiment was bloodied and exhausted from the fierce fighting at Contreras. But even so, each man stood at attention as the general approached. General Scott, who had arrived to order the regiment to Churubusco for an even more difficult battle, removed his hat, bowed low, and said, "Brave rifles, veterans, you have been baptized in fire and blood and have come out steel." Quote, "This accolade is emblazoned on the regimental coat of arms, and is the source of the regimental motto, Blood and Steel. All enlisted personnel are required to loudly challenge all officers in 3rd ACR with the portion of the regimental accolade given to 3rd ACR during the Mexican-American War. When an enlisted trooper is preparing to render military courtesy upon contact with an officer, he will yell out, 'Brave rifles,' whereupon the officer will reply, 'Veterans.'" The climax to the regiment's participation in the Mexican War came on the 13th of September 1847, when the brigade the regiment belonged to was ordered to support the assault on the fortress of Chapultepec, the site of the Mexican National Military Academy. Leading the American forces, the regiment stormed into Mexico City at 1:20 p.m. At 7 a.m. on the 14th of September 1847, Sergeant James Manley of F Company and Captain Benjamin Roberts of C Company raised the national colors over the National Palace, while Captain Porter, commander of F Company, unfurled the regimental standard from the balcony. During the Mexican War, 11 troopers were commissioned from the ranks and 19 officers received brevet promotions for gallantry in action. Regimental losses in Mexico were approximately 4 officers and 40 men killed, 13 officers and 180 wounded, and 1 officer and 180 men who died of other causes. Post-Mexican War, the regiment returned to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri, on the 24th of July 1848, where its veteran troopers were permitted to muster out, and recruited a new regiment. On the 10th of May 1849, it began the grueling 2,000-mile march to the Oregon Territory to accomplish the mission for which it was originally organized. In May 1851, the Mounted Riflemen were ordered to return to Jefferson Barracks. All the horses and troopers were transferred to the 1st Dragoons in California, and the officers and NCOs traveled by ship to Panama. After crossing the isthmus, they boarded another ship and returned to the regiment's birthplace, arriving on the 16th of July 1851. For the next 6 months, the regiment recruited, re-equipped, and retrained. In December 1851, the regiment was ordered to Texas. By January 1852, the regiment arrived at Fort Merrill, where for the next 4 years it operated against the Indian tribes living in the area. Patrols, skirmishes, guard, and escort duty were all part of the daily routine. In 1853, The regiment was redesignated as the 1st Regiment of Mounted Riflemen because the Army was considering raising another mounted rifle regiment. This did not happen, but the 1st designation remained. In 1856, Indian troubles in the New Mexico Territory required additional troops and the regiment moved further west, replaced by the newly created 2nd Cavalry. Fort Union, New Mexico became the new home base for the Mounted Riflemen. Service in New Mexico was constant and most exacting. The companies of the 1st Mounted Rifles were widely scattered and the number of troops available was wholly inadequate for the task of patrolling an area that extended from Denver, Colorado to the Mexican border and from West Texas to Arizona, Nevada, and Utah. American Civil War. In April 1861, the American Civil War broke out and 13 officers left the regiment to join the cause of the Confederacy, including future Generals Joseph "Fighting Joe" Wheeler, William W. Loring, Dabney H. Maury, William H. Jackson, George B. Crittenden, and John G. Walker. Not a single enlisted man left the regiment. On 3 August 1861, all mounted regiments of the U.S. Army were classified as cavalry, and the Regiment of Mounted Riflemen was renumbered the 3rd U.S. Cavalry Regiment, headquartered at Fort Domus, 3rd in precedence in the regular army. At the outbreak of the war, a Confederate force of about 3,000 Texans began a campaign at Fort Bliss, Texas to seize the territories of New Mexico and Colorado. The 3rd U.S. Cavalry Regiment was one of the few regular Army units in the region available to oppose them. On 25 July, detachments of Companies B and F were involved in a hard fight at Missoula and joined Company I when it surrendered with Fort Fillmore on 26 July. The regiment remained in New Mexico fighting hostile Indians as well as Confederate troops until 1862. In September 1862, the regiment redeployed to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri. In December it relocated to Memphis, Tennessee, where it spent 1863 performing duties for 15th Corps Army of the Tennessee. Between October and December 1863, the 3rd Cavalry participated in operations on the Memphis and Charleston Railroad and fought in skirmishes at various locations such as Barton Station, Cane Creek, and Dickinson Station, Alabama. The 3rd Cavalry was tasked by General Sherman to perform various reconnaissance missions as part of his advance guard, including marching to the relief of Knoxville, Tennessee. Elements of the regiment also were engaged at Murphy, North Carolina and Loudon, Tennessee. In 1864 the regiment relocated to Little Rock, Arkansas, where it remained for the remainder of the war fighting guerrilla forces, and after the war ended, on occupation duty until April 1866, when it was ordered back to New Mexico. The 3rd U.S. Cavalry Regiment's losses during the Civil War were 2 officers and 30 enlisted men who were either killed in action or died of wounds, and 3 officers and 105 enlisted men who died of disease or other non-combat causes. Indian Wars. In April 1866, the 3rd Cavalry was once again ordered to the New Mexico Territory to campaign against the Indians. In 1868 to 1869 many fightings against Mescalero Apache, and also Jicarilla Apache, Navajo and Ute Indians involved detachments of the regiment between the Rio Grande and the Pecos. Beginning in February 1869, 1870, most of the companies of the 3rd Cavalry Regiment began moving individually to the Arizona Territory, but the regimental headquarters and Company I moved to Camp Halleck, and Company D to Camp McDermott, both in northern Nevada. Late in 1871, the regiment was transferred north to the Department of the Platte, which included what are now the states of Wyoming, Montana, the Dakotas and Nebraska. The 3rd Cavalry became the main cavalry force for department operations in the Black Hills region. During the summer of 1876, the regiment participated in the Little Big Horn campaign against the Sioux and Cheyenne. On the 17th of June 1876, 10 companies of the 3rd Cavalry fought in the Battle of Rosebud Creek. This was the largest battle between the Army and the Indians in the history of the American West, with 1,400 friendly Indians and troopers opposing more than 1,500 hostile Indians. 4 3rd Cavalry troopers received the Medal of Honor for bravery in this battle. The names were Trumpeter Elmer A. Snow of Company M and First Sergeants Joseph Robinson of Company D, Michael A. McGann of Company F, and John H. Shingle of Company I. With the Apache uprising in the spring of 1882, the regiment was ordered to return to Arizona, and on the 17th of July, the 3rd and 6th Cavalry Regiments defeated renegade Apaches in the Battle of Big Dry Wash. This battle quelled the last Apache uprising in Arizona and also marked the end of the regiment's participation in the Indian Wars. This action resulted in the award of 2 more Medals of Honor, to First Sergeant Charles Taylor of Company D and Lieutenant George H. Morgan of Company K. The year 1883 would see the term company changed to troop in the mounted service, and in 1885 the red and white guidon replaced the 1863 stars and stripes pattern adopted at the beginning of the Civil War. In 1885, the 3rd U.S. Cavalry was ordered back to Texas, where it remained until 1893. Between 1893 and 1897, the regiment was engaged in garrison training and ceremonial activities throughout the East and Midwest. By July 1897, the regimental headquarters and 4 troops were stationed at Fort Ethan Allen, Vermont, while the remainder of the regiment returned to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri. Fort Sumner, New Mexico. Companies G and I of 3rd Cavalry Battle with Navajos, 5 privates killed and 4 wounded. See Battle of Powder River. See Battle of the Rosebud. See Battle of Slim Buttes. See Dull Knife Fight.